Welcome folks to my Frisco N-scale layout. Just wanted to let you know what we've been up to over the last week. I received on eBay through one of the guys on frisco.org a notice that he was selling a couple brass Hallmark GP7s that were DC. Now my entire layout is DCC, but I went ahead and bought them just because I can't pass up a good deal on Frisco locomotives, especially anything painted in orange and white and custom painted like this. I believe these were factory painted Hallmark brass DC locomotives, but always wanted to convert them over to DCC, and just wanted to tell you a couple problems that I had and the solution that I ended up going with. Originally with the brass DC locomotive that we have here, you can see I ended up, that's what a Hallmark locomotive looks like underneath, and I'll try to get a little bit closer to it so you can see. Fortunately, the brushes are isolated from the chassis, surprisingly, and so it is fairly easy to put a Digitrax or an NCE decoder into the locomotive. The only thing that you have to watch out for is the tabs for the motor are above and below, very closely to a plastic drive shaft, and what I ended up doing is I melted the drive shaft when I was putting it, converting it over to DCC. So I ended up making a piece to allow me to kind of fabricate a drive shaft, and got everything running, and it ran really well from a DCC standpoint. The only problem was it's old technology, old gears, didn't work very well, it stopped often. Had a lot of trouble with everything restarting. Just had a lot of DCC issues with it when this locomotive ran. So I decided to scrap the chassis, and obviously this is a DC chassis, and I'm going to leave this GP7 and GP7 chassis alone just to save it. But I did some reading on the internet, and there were some suggestions that I could take a GP35 from Atlas that was DCC and put that whole DCC locomotive frame, motor, running gear underneath the brass shell, as long as I isolated the brass shell from the GP35's undercarriage. Now you'll notice, in addition to the undercarriage, the wheelbase is the same, but you'll see how long the fuel tank is, and this one has actually been filled up because it's the extra extended range tank, because this happens to be a Frisco U-boat with the air cylinders up on top. Hopefully you can see, if we get down below, there's a very short fuel tank on a GP7, and the air cylinders run longitudinally across the frame of the locomotive on the underside. So I thought maybe it would be possible to take the DCC Atlas locomotive GP35, convert it over to a GP7 fuel tank, and then after I did that, I could take that whole assembly and maybe skinny it up, narrow it up, and do whatever I needed to do to the weights inside the body of the locomotive, and maybe kind of grind those away a little bit and try to make it so that the locomotive fit inside. And I was able to do so. And how I isolated the locomotive, the body, which is brass, from the DCC Atlas undercarriage from the GP35, is using something called liquid tape, effectively painting the entire inside of the body with liquid tape to isolate it from the DC frame. And now you can see we have complete DCC control. We can turn the lights on and fire it up. Now what I want you folks to do for a step-by-step on what it takes to do exactly what I did, a pictorial, go to www.frisco.org/shipit. Once you do that, you'll be allowed to get into the forums. Once you get into the forums, all you have to do is go to the N-Scale forum and look up JMOR16. I'm on there, and it shows all the projects, including the project that we're going to have for this GP7 running around, step by step, everything I had to do, everything I had to grind away to go ahead and convert it over to DC and get it as smooth running as it is right now. Smooth and quiet. So please go to the N-Scale forum in www.frisco.org. And once again, this is John Moore signing off, and I wish I could go back to those days. Certainly because I miss my father. Thanks, folks.